Hey, everybody, Mark Herman, aka LA Bengals fan on most of the major platforms, and we have a full house tonight. I'm joined here by superfans Heath Goldman, Jake Circus, Riley Circus, Devin Circus, and this is the Week 6 recap of Jungle Talk. Yeah,
Hooray!
all right. So before I forget, let's do housekeeping. If you don't subscribe, please subscribe. It's all we ask. Support the channel. Show by fans for fans. That's what it'll always be. And Jake, you do some amazing podcasts. Tell them where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, Jake Circus podcast on Spotify. I don't know, there might not be an episode tomorrow. We've had some fun today, so we'll see. Yeah, just check it out. There'll be a college football show on Wednesday.
Well, for those of you who watched the preview show, Jake gave us out two winners, LSU and Hawaii. So here's to your two winners. I know you've been drinking. Here we go.
And how about a toast? Apparently, congratulations in order to me. I'm the birth of my new son, Riley.
There you go. There you go. And since we did win, we've got to the Mighty Ducks quacker and the winning horn. So there you go.
That didn't work very well at all.
You know what? It's
that was almost a failure, as almost as that game was.
That celebration was as tame and lame as our win was.
You know what?
Perfect.
And we're going to get into that because this team.
Mark, I got to interrupt. Something's happened with your mic. Can barely hear you.
No? How about that?
There you go.
There it is.
Oh, this game, we can't do anything easy. And this team lacks the ability of making just a key play. That Zach Moss fumble changed the entire second half. They made a bonehead call going for it that early in that position, only chasing 7. They give us the ball, and we give it right back to them. If we score on that drive, we take charge of this game. We take the spirit right out of this team. But this team can't make the key play to do that. It's so frustrating. And I know we won, and I don't want to complain too much, but it's just frustrating because the talent level's there. I mean, help me out here. Am I wrong, guys?
No, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, I think Vrabel was not Vrabel, Jesus. Dable was very aggressive today because he knew that he didn't have much in terms of options to throw to with Malik Neighbors out, and Singletary was out too. And their line was depleted. So they were overly aggressive. And what you do when you're the opposing head coach, when a team is overly aggressive, you have to be aware of that, and you kind of have to kind of match it. And it didn't seem like Zach Taylor had any interest in matching that aggressiveness. He was very much playing defense, which is when you're paying Joe Burrow $45 million, and now this is the second week that we're saying this, it's a little fucked up when you constantly are relying on your defense and you're running the ball and chewing clock and you're just praying for your defense to get a stop. Look, the Bengals secondary was good tonight, but they had some plays where they committed unnecessary pass interference penalties. If you voluntarily give the other team the ball in a big spot, you're a pass interference penalty away from that game going to overtime. And I've said countless times on this show, on other places, there's nothing more high variance in professional football than overtime. And it just seemed like that's what he was going for. He would have been happy if that game went to overtime. And the one call that was just completely inexcusable was the run play right before the 2-minute warning. Now, they did get the first down, but Zach Brown fumbled. That is inexcusable. That is a free play to pass the ball because the clock is stopping anyways. You have a free play to pass the ball, and I don't care that he got 10 yards. That just shows his mentality with less than 5 minutes left in a game, and it shows that he has not learned. It shows he has not adapted, and it shows that everything that the fan base and what should be the players that are giving him feedback, it's just not resonating with him. And it is a very, very sad win for the Bengals because of that reason.
Yeah.
I'm going to expand on that. We watched the game together. Jake's obviously the expert on the X's and O's and the deep inner workings. But one thing that really resonated with me, and it's funny, we've seen it pretty much his entire tenure. but it's resonating more with now when it's obvious that he's not, I don't know if worthy is the right word, capable of doing this job and leading it, but he looks confused and lost and just out of place. I want to ask you guys a question because I do need to admit we had audio on the Dodgers, not the Bengals game. There was a play early in the game where it was about 3rd and 10, and they picked up 8, and there was a penalty, and it felt like an obvious accept a penalty because they were going to go for it. They didn't announce the penalty being declined. Zach looked pissed, confused, and then next thing we know, the Giants were going for it at 4th and 2. What did they talk about what happened? Because we don't know. We didn't have audio, and I didn't see anything on Twitter.
Zach, I think, was pissed because he was trying to. Riley, you've got that background noise. I think somebody's got background noise. I'm hearing something. Your box lit up too, buddy. Sorry. I think Zach was pissed because he was trying to decline it, and they were trying to say that it was 3rd down again with the penalty, and he was trying to decline it the whole time. So, I mean, I guess you could have made it 3rd and 7, but you made it 4th and 2.
3rd and 15 or 3rd and 14. It was 3rd.
Whatever that was, he was gonna. Like he took it. Let's be honest. That coach decided to go for it. I think on every single 4th down, except when he tried to kick 2, young short field goals, and it just didn't work.
All right. No, they didn't say anything, but I was under the impression that we declined it, and then
it was
had to have because they went
and it was 4th and 2. They didn't want to make it 3rd and 7, and give them the extra down. So they went for it, and that started the whole series of 4th downs.
No,
it would have been 3rd and 13, and
I've got it right here. I found it. It was 3rd and 10. It was an illegal formation. They picked up 8 yards, and we stopped them anyways. But it was very, and then we fumbled 2 plays later, and then that's when the Giants scored that touchdown. So it was just a weird.
Okay.
It was. Can you hear me now?
Barely.
No? What about now?
Yes.
And he's the one that got all the fancy equipment.
It was a very weird turn of events. But it was 3rd and 10. They got 8 yards, and the Bengals declined it. But I felt like that was a very obvious accept situation
Right.
to get to 3rd and 15 instead of 4th and 2. Because you feel confident that you can avoid giving up 9 to 11 yards on 3rd and 15, and the Giants ends up getting it, and Mike Hilton made a good play to bat it down.
Yeah. No. He, Zach to me had the look on his face like he wished he had enforced the penalty after he saw them going for it, and you can't go back and change your mind.
You have to know they're going to go for it, and that's why I was confused. That's why Jake and I, again, a little different watching the game without audio. We both felt it was an obvious accept because at 3rd and 15 versus 4th and 2, like Jake was saying, you hold them to 12 yards or less, you've won.
I mean, usually I'm the Debbie Downer. I will say that there was, to Jake's point, the defensive backs were a lot better today than they have been all year.
Probably because
but that was just a frustrating game to watch. I will say, I mean, I'm curious. I'm going to ask this question to Jake, as Devin's point is the X and O's guy. It seemed to me that Joe was holding that ball a long time in that pocket. I mean, he kept scrambling, and granted, they had a defensive pressure on us all night, but it sure seemed like he was holding that ball a lot longer than he needed to.
No, I blame a lot of the sacks on.
Offensive line had him scramble. As bad as we played for 5 games, our offensive line has been pretty darn good all year. They were really, really bad tonight. I mean, there was Amarius Mims had a total whiff in the first half when it should have been an easy pocket and a completion.
Right.
He had a rough night. Offensive line was really bad tonight. And yeah, Joe was lost and off his game several times.
There were a few plays where Joe.
Your mic again.
Dude, this there was a few plays where Joe looked off sorts, but I will say that Shane Bowen, who's the Giants' new defensive coordinator, took over for Patrick Graham. He's a Mike Vrabel guy. He was with the Titans. Well, first of all, a great hire, and he came into this job with an already elite defensive line. If the Giants have Kayvon Thibodeau and Malik Neighbors tonight, they win that game.
Win it, 100%.
Even without Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence was a complete mismatch with interior pressure. Now, what Shane Bowen does is he presses a lot and he relies on four-man pressure. It makes being a defensive coordinator really easy when you know that you can get pressure with four. Tonight, they were with basically one guy because of how bad the mismatch was with Lawrence versus Volson, Kappa, and Karras. And that was where the pressure was coming. Brian Burns kind of had a couple plays where he rushed from the inside. And it was very obvious the mismatches between the Giants' elite defensive line versus the Bengals' interior, and Bengals receivers weren't winning. And there weren't guys that were like, oh, Joe, throw it. Like, yeah, he took sacks, but he didn't turn the ball over. He didn't force any interceptions. It could have been much worse for Burrow.
Yeah.
And I'll also add, our only explosive plays were because of Joe Burrow. They were not in structure. They were not scheming guys open. It was Burrow creating with his legs. It was Burrow extending the play, and it was him being ridiculously accurate on that deep ball to Chase off script, and then the one to Joseph to basically end the game. So it was a lot of good for Burrow. I don't know if the film's going to look as bad as it might seem, but the Bengals line got beat, and they got beat bad.
Yeah, hold on. It also seemed like it was really bad timing because there were two negative plays that took us out of McPherson range. And we had chances to get points in the first half where we all of a sudden, Burrow takes the sack or we have a negative play, and now all of a sudden we're punting the ball. So, I mean, the timing of them was terrible.
So I usually watch this game as a fan. Today I wanted to watch it kind of as an analyst, so I could actually have a smart conversation with Jake and with you guys. But I will say the one thing I did notice. Jake, say it again.
I just love Devin's expression.
Oh boy, here we
he
go.
said, "Oh boy."
Wait. Before you give your analyst, I want to grab a pen and a piece of paper. So go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is, to Jake's point, what I also noticed a lot on the defensive line, and yes, they're elite. There was a lot of stunting going on. I mean, they were stunting on that defensive line to get that.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, so it wasn't just straight push, is what I meant.
If you go back when the Titans had, when they had Danico Autry and Jeffrey Simmons on the same defense, those Titans teams that won 12 games, they won division titles. That's what they did. They did simulated pressure, and they made it seem like they were sending more guys than they actually were, and that created space on the interior, taking advantage on guards and centers instead of tackles out wide. And that's what happened tonight. There were a few where I was just like, it looked like the Bengals defensive line had never seen a twist, had never seen a stunt. And yeah, that's a great point. That's why the Giants parted ways. They parted ways with Patrick Graham 2 years ago, who was a very, very good defensive coordinator, and they parted ways with Wink Martindale last year, who was an all-time, very respected defensive coordinator. And they brought in Shane Bowen, who's from a very respected coaching tree, and a very well-known system. And they've looked good all year. This wasn't just like the Bengals. Look at what they did to Geno 2 weeks ago, and that was an offense that was humming going into that game, right. And it was a much better spot for the Seahawks than it was for the Bengals tonight. So this defense is legit, and they were missing a very key piece in Thibodeau. So that's a very good point based on
the defense kept
my analyst picking.
Their defense kept us in how many 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 9s,
yeah,
3rd and 10
very bad on early downs.
Yeah, and then they're looking at 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2, and they don't get it, and they go for it because they're at 4th and 2 and 4th and 1, and we just seemed like we were in 3rd and long the entire night.
They got 5 yards on first down. I'm gonna guess. I'll be conservative and say 70% of the time they got 5 yards or more on first down, and wouldn't even surprise. It definitely in the second half. Yeah, absolutely.
I got some positives. Can we go quick positives here?
Actually, we can jump into the positives. I just say 3 things. Tyson Anderson on special teams making 2 great coverage on punts. Okay.
Seriously, I told you before we started the show that I was going to say something that has never, ever been said on this show. We've never talked about it, Gunner, and you busted me on that one already.
You didn't tell me what you were going to say. This is proof we don't script it. The BJ Hill, amazing. And T. Higgins, the reason why he caught every pass that was thrown to him, that they were behind him. Burrow threw a couple really, tough balls, and he caught everything thrown his way. So those three guys, if I'm giving out game balls, all three of those guys get game balls.
I'll jump in if I may. I've been very critical of T. Not only did he have a very, very good game, but that there was one in fourth quarter, you could tell he got hit right on the shoulder. Came out, but he came back on the next play, which goes against everything that I've been critical about him about. That was great. There was a lot of harmony with T and Jamar was quiet, other than, had a couple, I think he only had 5 catches on 6 targets outside of the 30-ish yard play, which was a huge spot at the time. He was quiet, but T was great tonight. Quiet night for the tight ends, only 2 receptions overall.
Well, they were so bad on early downs that they really couldn't scheme anything up for the tight ends. That's why the offense has been so good recently. It wasn't because they were, the explosive plays have been there the last few weeks and they weren't there tonight, but they've schemed up plays on early downs. And there was a stat that the NBC broadcast had up. I believe it was late in the third or early in the fourth, that the Bengals were bad on third down all night, but their average distance to go was 8.4.
Yeah.
That's inexcusable for an offense when you have as accurate of a quarterback as you do, to average 2 yards on first and second down combined for the whole night. That's when your offense scores, up until the garbage time touchdown. That's when your offense scores 1 touchdown.
Yeah.
Against a good defense, but come on, man. What are we doing here?
Riley?
Yeah, it's crazy that we were in such long third downs, and yet Burrow threw the ball less than 30 times this game. I don't see we were up, but we were up by 3. We weren't up big. We weren't blowing them out and letting the running backs run for 40 times. They ran for 16 combined. I don't know how we moved the ball so little this game. I think I watched it with my podcast mates. They're both Giants fans. They're both in love with the front 4 of their team, even without Thibodeau.
Yeah.
But they were like, this is one of the worst secondaries in the league, and we put up 17 points on them. Burrow threw for 208 yards against Giants fans saying they are a terrible secondary. They are 208 yards. That's not acceptable.
Their front did such a good job that we couldn't even.
Burns was a beast. Burns was a beast.
Burns was out. Burns was. You trade a first round pick for a guy, he better be a difference maker immediately. And I said right when I think we were reacting to the Geno Stone signing on the show when Burns got traded, and I said, if you want to trade a first round pick for a guy like that, I don't fault you for it. He's been an instant difference maker to that team, and they're missing Thibodeau, and I think he's going to be out for a few more weeks. Here are just some lay of the land, some drive stats. And, Riley makes a good point. Burrow did not throw the ball many times. The Bengals didn't run that many plays. The Giants ran 22 more plays than us.
Wow.
They were playing the clock game. And the reason why the Bengals were in control of the game still was because the run defense was actually very good. And this is a running offense, the Giants, that ran for 150 yards on 5.5 a carry against Seattle last week on the road. They come back home against the run defense in Cincinnati that has been awful this year. And, you get Rankins back in there, you get BJ Hill fully healthy, who had a nice night tonight. And you hold them to 3.8 yards a rush. I believe it was closer to 3.1 just for the running backs. So good night for them. The Giants did run a lot of plays, but they were a lot of not very productive plays. Their success rate was very low. But the Bengals weren't on the field very long tonight, and that is because of how bad they were on early downs. That's it. That was the game. It was first and second down, and they were so bad on those downs.
What did we finish with the total of first downs? Because I think we only had 6 in the first half, and late in the fourth, we only had 12 first downs.
The Giants had 24 first downs, and the Bengals had 13.
Yeah, we only had one more after I saw it was. they ran a 16 play drive coming off Zach Moss's fumble. Then later on, they were at some point, they were at a 12 play drive. I don't remember what the total was, but it was more than 12. I mean, they had sustained long drives. Like I said, it says it all right there in the first downs.
We'll say one thing today that we haven't said all year. Our defense came to play finally, somewhat healthy. 16 plays and you get no points out of it. I think that's where they missed the field goal. I mean, you got to give the D some serious credit. I mean, they had pressure and they got home enough times tonight.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I was going to go. We've danced around it and we talked about BJ. Somebody just mentioned Rankins. The Giants are an interesting team when Malik Neighbors is on the field. They target him an absolute boatload. Without him, it was very surprising what their offense did last week to be successful against Seattle because two absolute scrubs in Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson, if I'm not mistaken, they both had double-digit receptions last week. Now, it's a lot of short stuff. It's a lot of swings. Yes. It's a lot of outs. It's a lot of slants. But our defensive line did a very, very good job. Not as effective as theirs, but is similarly effective in that we were putting pressure on Daniel Jones and did not allow them to throw the ball downfield. Robinson and Slayton had 11 receptions combined. They had 6 receptions to the tight end Tracy. So there was a lot of good in that defensive line. And Jake already mentioned what we did with the running backs. So, kudos to them. BJ up front, Sheldon being back, Chris Jenkins is being quietly effective.
Right.
That was good.
There's
good stuff.
Yeah, there's one more thing to that aspect that if you didn't watch all of the Giants game last week, you might have missed. They were without Neighbors in that game too. They got a lot of yards after the catch. And the Seahawks missed a lot of tackles. And that was a concern for me going into it because we have missed a lot of tackles this year and we haven't been great on early downs. That wasn't the case tonight. Just in terms of what the Bengals had to go up against tonight, not looking forward to next week against Cleveland or the Eagles coming to town in 2 weeks or, them going on a run. It was they were into a spot where they were off of a team who was feeling themselves, who had momentum, who forced a lot of missed tackles last week, and they got nothing after the catch. It was a lot of instant hits, nice tackles, short of the sticks, forcing the Giants into some tough throws and tough spots. And that's what I think led to the 4th down stops, the punts. It wasn't scheme. It was just the guys going out there and making plays, which is what we've been waiting for so long.
Right.
Yeah. One quick one that however long we've been, I can't believe hasn't been mentioned yet. Joe Burrow, 47-yard touchdown run. Hell yeah.
Well, and that play, there was the one when they showed the replay of what Joe saw. There wasn't a giant in the screen. You just saw green and then the end zone. So, kudos to him for seeing where the pressure was coming from and seeing that there was no defenders on that side. And then
he had to make that call, right? I mean, that had to have been his call to make it the line.
Oh, yeah. It was. They do a lot of stuff where that play, I'll have to look at it again, but it looked like they were all the receivers were on one side, and that's either an audible that they have against a zero blitz, or it's just what was in the structure. But Burrow saw that he called out zero before the snap, and he knew that was going to be an option. I don't know if he knew he was going to break off a 50-yard touchdown run, but in terms of 3rd and 16, you have to get it off quick or you have to get out of there against the zero blitz, and he decided to get out of there, and it paid off. But I'm sure he saw that pre-snap, and once he saw the C part right after the snap, he got out of there pretty well.
Yeah. So I had 4 positives. Mark came up with all three of my 4. I have to say, we've been talking about it for a few weeks now. I know we found our punter, but it's big. There's a bigger difference between just booming punts and pinning him within the 15-yard line. And I think he pinned him back at least 3 times. Twice?
Well, there was the one that went in the end zone. So, but it should have, that was on the Gunners not making the right play. They let it bounce in. They should have been there to cover it. But so they were great punts for all 3, but only 2 were within the 15.
But your dad's talking about the tackles that Tyson Anderson.
Yeah, Tyson Anderson had 2
the punt
tackles
really
down there. So
really good.
Yeah. So all right, well,
funny. So So, I didn't love what I watched tonight, but listening to Jake, I feel a little bit more positive. I mean, with that kind of stunting going on, and that really, I don't watch, obviously, I'm not watching the defense at all, and I don't know much about the Giant defense. I feel better about, because I will tell you, our defensive line played really, really well. And most of the time, our deep backs were there. I will tell you what, I didn't mention it yet. That was one of my other positives. DJ Turner came to play.
Yes.
I mean, I know we talked about DJ Who last week.
Yes.
I think that might have been Devin. He had some big plays, and he was there. One time, I think he got semi-burned, but we made some plays. We needed him to fill in nicely there.
The pass interference was a blunder. Turn around and face the ball, and you don't give him that call because that was a Giant touchdown.
He was trying to get his head around.
So,
if he didn't put his hands up, I don't think they call that because the guy jumped and he went down when DJ put his hands up. And look, like one of you just said, he's trying to make a play. I get it. It was unfortunate. He had great cover, and it was an underthrown ball.
Right. Well, and I think that's what they called.
Made the comment on an underthrown ball. It's either caught 80% of the time, and the other 20% is pass interference.
Right. Well, he was trying to come back to the ball, and that's why I think they called the PI because he was facing the ball and he was trying to come back, and the arms were up. So
if he hits him on stride, DJ Turner breaks it up, and it's an incomplete pass.
Yeah. So
I don't think that was a dumb defensive back penalty.
No.
At all. I think that was him trying to make a good play. And otherwise, this is what we love about DJ. He's very sticky. He's a twitchy guy. He's got good instincts, and he's very good playing the ball. We saw that tonight. He needs to play more. He needs to and again, this is another negative, and this is not Zach's fault. This is way above Zach's head. You have a 3rd round pick as a healthy scratch tonight. Irvin was out there missing blocks. Like what the fuck? I mean, you consistently have failed drafting, not just on defense, but now you got a guy who's supposed to be your speedster over the top to clear out space. He can't even get on the field. He can't even dress.
Right.
That is a complete failure.
Well, let me ask you a question, Jake. I know where you're going with that comment. The question I really have is it a complete failure at the level of drafting, or is that a complete failure that he's much of a head case? Because we've heard some shit coming out of college about him.
Well, that we don't know. But again, like where's the why are you drafting him? If you're gonna not play him this early in the season because he's a head case, why are you drafting him? Like we know the upside he brings. We know.
But let's be honest, the Bengals had some serious success drafting people that should have been drafted where they were. Joe Mixon, we had the kid from ASU. I'm blanking on his name. Perfect. I mean, we've had some success drafting some people that.
Here's the thing. Let me expand on that. First off, Jermaine Burton, who, by the way, Calabasas High School. I don't know if you remember that, Heath. He was first round talent.
You remember it, yeah.
First round talent. There was no disputing that. But he was projected to go in the 4th and 5th round because of all the stuff. If you watch the draft, anybody remember what Nick Saban said when the kid was drafted, who had him at Alabama? Questions here. So if the point that, because I'm agreeing with Jake entirely, if you're going to take him in the 3rd round, you better have done your freaking homework and you're not concerned with the head cases. So if here we are, week 6 in the season, we're worried about the head case issues, then we did a poor job in deciding to draft him in the 3rd round. If he's a 5th round draft pick, we're not even mentioning his name. But he went in the 3rd round, and there were a lot of good receivers left on the board then.
There were.
I want to say Adonai Mitchell, not Cole. There were good wide receivers available on the 3rd round.
There always are. And the 3rd round picks the last 2 years, one of them's already released, and we were excited when the other one, we saw him for a snap today battle. We were very excited to see him get. He had fucking played it all this year.
Let me ask you a question.
He have 4 tackles, so he must have gotten a bunch of snaps.
So he must have played more, which is thank God.
So let me ask a question here, and I don't remember the timing. Did we pick Burton as a filler for T, and then thinking that we might have traded T, and then he's kept him around? There's not a place on the field for him, really.
No, T was always in the plans for this year. He was always in the plans for the season. But like the fact that your 3rd round pick is a healthy scratch, you have organizations who are getting production like hundreds of snaps undrafted free agents from day 3 picks, and you draft a guy who had so much upside coming out, and it just looks like you have no ability to even come close to unlocking him.
Somebody mentioned a comment. Somebody mentioned it a couple weeks ago when they were talking about firing every coach. Somebody mentioned Dick Tobin's name like once, and at some point you have to mention it again.
By the way, he might be a dick, but it's Duke.
Duke Tobin. Yeah, you're right. So
now, and Burton, you know what? He also is missing. We're dressing Irwin, and Burton could be getting valuable time on the field. Even if he's only getting in a few plays, he's part of the game. He's maturing. He's learning. Being a scratch doesn't help him. I don't understand the thinking there.
Well, Irwin sucks. I mean,
right?
He sucks.
So
I'm glad at least Yoshi's getting those snaps. I mean, he's a very skilled player. That's
yes.
Let me ask one last.
That they have going for that I feel very good about is Yoshi.
Let me head towards a wrap up. Let me ask one question of everybody, since it was on my mind earlier today, because Devin made a comment about he's been tough on T. Higgins, and rightfully so. We still have him for one more tag, and it's not that much of an increase. I mean, I don't know what you do, but that means at this point you can't afford to pay him, elite money on a long-term contract, because you're going to give some to Chase and everything else. But hey, we still got him on 1 year more tag.
We tagged him twice, and we could have gotten him on a long-term deal.
They can't afford T. They can afford T and they can afford Jamar, but they don't want to give out the guaranteed money. That's the issue. They can afford both of them. There is not a single player on that defense that is worth extending in the next 2 years. So that is a perfect excuse to pay both of your receivers. The problem was they thought they were going to have pieces on the defense that were going to need extensions in the next 2 to 3 seasons. They don't, because you don't know what you're going to do with Dax. CTB is a liability out there. That is it. Logan's extended, and Pratt is already extended. And if they weren't, if you're paying linebackers over receivers, you deserve jail time. So they don't have any players on that defense that they probably have in the plans 3-4 years down the line. It's your perfect excuse to go out and pay both of your receivers. So
you got Katie's email. Maybe you sent her this. Maybe you sent her this snippet of this show.
I had a line. I actually made Jake laugh, and it's not often I can do it in a situation like this. I said to Jake, in the offseason, what they need to do is put Jamar and T alone in a room and bring in however many suitcases, give them $250 million. Say, guys, here's $250 million. You freaking figure it out. However many years, whatever the guarantee.
Yeah,
just divvy up the 250 between you two, and let's go for the next 4 years.
It's gonna take. I don't have it on me. But whatever.
I'm not off on 250.
Take what? Well,
the 140 just for Chase.
The total money you're not off, but the upfront money, it's a little. Right. It's going to be around. Right. I mean, take whatever. Take whatever Waddle and Jefferson. Cut that in half, and that's your guaranteed money for Jamar. Take Pittman, add about 20%, and that's your guaranteed money for Chase. That's what you need.
I will tell you why. Pittman's on my fantasy team. That guy has done almost nothing this season.
Well, Pittman made a catch tonight that lost me quite a few dollars. So, fuck that guy.
Ilks Christian, if I'm not mistaken, Devin.
It's funny how you feel the catches when it costs you money. From you and I are gamblers. Heath is not, but when you remember and you feel those, so no question. All right,
I'm not a gambler because my son goes to an expensive school. Actually, if any of you haven't checked in on Riley's podcast with him and his buddies, it's a pretty good show. You enjoy it.
Riley, you have to tell them where this time. Put the link in the comments. You didn't. I said
I will.
In the comments on the last one.
Last time
people can't find it if it's not there. So
I also did miss this last episode because I was at Cole Nidre Services while they filmed it. But yeah.
All right. Well,
I'll put it there.
All right. Well, why don't you tell them where they can find your stuff, and then Jake, you tell them where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, so you can find it on Spotify at the MFL Football Podcast, the EMFL Football Podcast, doing a preview show and recap show every week for the NFL season, and we'll see what ends up happening down the road when the this comes to an end in the spring semester. But
All right. Well, as soon as this is uploaded, put the link in the comments so the viewers can find it. And Jake, who went 2-0 this week, and I thank you. I don't want 2 more next week. You guys gotta listen to the previews. Jake gives out winners every week. It was Cal 2 weeks ago. So tell them where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, we had a great college week. There were a lot more winners. Follow me on Twitter. Watch the BR betting show on the BR app on Saturday mornings. We had a very good day yesterday. Not so much today, but a very good college day. Jake Circus podcast, Spotify, and YouTube. I know you're a Buckeye fan, Heath, but that was quite a game yesterday. That was quite a game.
From a football perspective, it was a hell of a football game.
Those are 2 of the 3 best teams in the country. That's my takeaway from that game.
Yeah, Texas is a hell of a ball team.
I actually looked at the odds last night just for kicks and giggles. There's a reason why Ohio State, unless it wasn't updated, but usually they update it. It wouldn't be posted if it wasn't updated. After the game, several hours after the game, Ohio State was still the second favorite behind Texas ahead of Oregon.
Yeah, their odds won't drop unless they lose to Penn State, because as of now, they're still the favorite in the Big Ten because they're going to play Oregon again unless they lose to Penn State. So,
right.
Which I think they're going. I think they're going to lose to Penn State, but they haven't lost yet, so it hasn't affected their odds.
Here's the thing, and then we could cut the show off this. There was something that was an interesting fact. Before the Penn State game, Penn State winning at SC, the coastal teams were 0-8 in the Big Ten. Bless you. It's too far for students to have to travel to play a sport, and it's ridiculous.
I could be wrong. I think Cal's done it 3 times already. I think Cal's gone to Clemson.
Pitt, the stat was like teams traveling 2 time zones. They were 1-8. The only win was Indiana at UCLA, and Penn State traveled 2 time zones, and Oregon or Ohio State lost, so they went 1-1 yesterday. But it's fucked. It is a new brand of football, and Ohio State saw an offense. And I'll say one more thing: Ohio State saw an offense yesterday that just doesn't exist in the Big Ten. And those corners, very experienced, very NFL-ready corners, were lost because of the way that Oregon uses like space and motion and speed, and that offense doesn't exist in the Big Ten. And Oregon might be the most physical team in the Big Ten. That's very scary.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
There you have it. Well, if you don't subscribe, please subscribe. It's all we ask. We're going to be doing previews on Thursdays, and then obviously recaps right after the game. Thank you to Riley, who's staying up till midnight to do the show because we're all West Coast. Yes.
And Mark, before we meet again on Thursday, we can only hope that the Dodgers are up 3-0 and the Yankees are down 2-0 by then.
Wow, what a wow. You don't want this smoke. You'd rather just face an 86 win team than a real team in the World Series.
I just want your team to lose because you want my team to lose. That's all.
I don't want your team to lose. I don't want your team to lose. I want to beat your ass in the World Series. I'm waiting 7 years for it.
Okay.
All right. Well, it was an ugly win tonight, but we got the win. On to next week, and we will see you on Thursday with the preview. I'm going to say, "Hoot, everybody!"
Hold on 1 sec.
Well, go ahead.
Can't go. Like Devin said it last week. You can't go on a run unless you win this game. So we started our run potentially today. We've got some winnable games here.
Every streak starts with 1.
You can't go on a run unless you get 1.
That's right. Every streak starts with 1. We got 1. We're going to get 2 next week. So tune in Thursday. And with that, I'm going to say, "Hoot, everybody! Have a good evening."
You make a couple